Hi everyone, it's Liam here from Rating the Races. So I thought I'd do a little review of some of the racing, some of the thoughts, some of the things that appeared on Twitter on Saturday. And we'll start off with a bit of a negative, a bit of a rant. Mr. Kennedy, Emmett Kennedy, decided to retweet his tweet that he made on July the 5th about the ride on Hilson. Now, it was a poor ride, and it is being investigated, correct. You know, absolutely fine. Why did he need to retweet that on the Saturday? Because he wanted more attention, he wanted more likes, he wanted more followers, he wanted more comments on it. You know, these are the type of pundits that we don't need in racing, the ones that are just after the attention and the tweets and the comments about things. Yes, you've made your point about that. Yes, you've already got people to reply about it. Great. Leave it now. Let's let the authorities deal with it. Why do you need to retweet that on a Saturday to try and get more attention on a tweet? So that was my first rant. There's more to come. So let's go through some of the races and have a look at what caught my eye on Saturday. So we started with the Coral Charge, which was won impressively by Equality. He was given a good ride down the inside. I think he was up there. Who was he up there with? He went forward with someone, didn't he? I can't remember who it was. He went forward. The other horse actually came in front, just slightly gave him a lead. He kicked away. The other one disappeared. Makarova ran on well. Tiber Flow ran on well through the gaps. Anaf ran on well from his held-up position. I saw this tweet. Wasn't impressed with it at all. First of all, the racing guide. I bet the winner. Great. You start with a bit of what's it called? After timing. But what sort of ride did Ross Orion give Anaf? Absolutely fine, the ride. He pulled him, he jumped out quite nicely, and he restrained him, because that's what the horse needs to do. You need to get him covered up, and you need to get just him to past horses late on. He didn't get the clearest of runs. He got blocked by Marshman, I think it was, who just come across him under Ryan Moore, and therefore didn't get the clearest of runs. But that happens at Sandown. Unfortunately, for Anaf and connections, they'll be disappointed. The jockey did nothing wrong whatsoever, and yet there was an attempt at trying to get comments. They did. They got me to actually reply. You know, I fell for the whole thing about replying, and you know, after timing and then trying to get attention by pointing out a poor ride. They're the types of tweets that just aren't needed either. In terms of the race, who was interesting? Nothing really. I mean, Jim Crowley actually gave Existent, I thought, a great ride, and yet he finished 9th. He was all on his own. He was the outsider of the field. He tried something different. If he'd gone with them, he probably wouldn't have got involved. He didn't get involved trying something different either, but at least he tried something. In terms of, you know, where do they go? Well, I imagine some of these are going to be off to like the Nunthorpes and things like that. Was there anything that could progress from a Group 3? Well, maybe Equality, but I'm not totally sure. I'd probably be looking elsewhere if they took on Group 2, Group 1 horses. Moving on to the 205 at Haydock. Lordship was a very impressive winner here. Adam Farragher actually came alongside Flower of Dubai, or was just about half a length down in the final half a furlong, and stopped riding temporarily. He knew that the horse is going to get there on his own. We've got the momentum. We're going to go past on their own. He's definitely one to keep an eye on in terms of his handicap mark. If they don't go very far, if they go 4 or less, I'd be interested in Lordship next time as well. I think he looked very progressive there. 4 or less, and he would definitely be in my equations for whatever race he turns up. Within reason, you know, in a handicap. If you turned up in a Group 1, then obviously you'd have to be thinking about that. But yeah, if in a handicap, £4 or less, and Lordship can certainly still show that he's better than that still. Moving on to the 425 at Sandown. I think I said 425 then. I meant 225 at Sandown. The Coral Challenge. And this was won by Perotto, holding off Uzo. Frustratingly for me, in this race, there were 3 horses that I had highlighted for future races after their runs at Royal Ascot. They were Perotto, but I highlighted Golden Mile, Uzo. And if I go back to this one, Intelligent. However, I said with Intelligent, he needs to go back up in trip. Unfortunately, he didn't jump out, so it just left the two of them. And I had highlighted Uzo earlier this week, or this week? Is it this week? Last week now, isn't it? As it's Sunday. I'd highlighted Uzo a bigger price for this race, and he finished second to the only other one that we'd highlighted as being nicely handicapped now. That's one race too early for me for Perotto. You know, it was 50 grand still for the winner, so I can totally understand why they went here. I think the summer mile is only worth, is it 74 for the winner maybe? In terms of going forward, I did mention that I imagine... Where is it? Where are you, Jamie? I did post to you. There we go. Off to Goodwood. For Revich. Interestingly, I don't think I'm allowed to show the videos in this race. Interestingly, Jamie had to defend some riding from a tipster who was talking absolute rubbish. This value advisory group was suggesting that Revich was given a terrible ride, not going for it. Not at all. Again, he got cut up, didn't get the clearest of runs, and ran well for fourth. Now, we've got to remember that he also finished, I think he finished third at Goodwood, so he'll likely go back there. Uzo will likely go back there. I think Perotto will go to Goodwood as well. All three of them are likely to come back out again. I would be looking at probably the front four again for that race at Goodwood. However, I still think the favourite's going to be very, very hard to beat at Goodwood. With that being Latam. I think the pound, I think he's a group horse. A lot of these are handicappers that are good handicappers that can run good races in handicaps. I do think that Latam is actually a group horse that will still be running in a handicap. So, you know, even with Perotto winning, Uzo running a great race, Revich running well, I think Latam is still the one to beat in the Golden Mile handicap at Goodwood. And well done, Jamie, for defending the ride from Jim Crowley. There was absolutely nothing wrong with it. People love to have a moan. I made a tweet yesterday, actually. Let me just find that. Here it is. Here. Nope. Here. I heard a great line in a Kurzgesagt video. If you don't know what those Kurzgesagt videos are, go and check them out. They're brilliant. They're not really to do with horse racing, or they're not to do with horse racing at all, but they're hugely interesting and teaches you a great deal. Being optimistic about the future of humanity is not mainstream. Pessimism often sounds smart and gets more views. That is so true. That's what Emmett Kennedy did at the beginning of the video. That's what the Racing Guide tried to do. That's what the other person who was criticising about the Revich ride tried to do. They love making negative comments because people love negative comments. They jump on them, they comment about them. You say that's a great ride, you'll get absolutely no interaction whatsoever because people don't want to interact with positive comments. It's just negative comments that people interact with, which is disappointing. Anyway, so in terms of the 225, great race. I was gutted that we had it the wrong way round. I thought Uzo was going to win this one and not Perotto. Let's hope Uzo can win a race in the future. Moving on to the 240, the Lancashire Oaks at Haydock. I think Danny Tudhope thought that Sea Silk Road was going to get there on run down Poptronic. He didn't ease up, but he came there going nicely, picked up strongly down the outside, and I think he thought he was going to get there and then didn't actually find that little bit right at the finish. It wasn't a bad ride or anything. I just think he slightly got done by how much Poptronic had left, and it was probably a great ride from Sam James from the front. Mimiku and Time Lock, yeah, they weren't in the same league as the other two. I think Sea Silk Road is the best horse in that race, and she's proven that, I think, there, although she finished second. Moving on to the 3 o'clock at Sandown, this was the Coral Distaff, the listed race, and we did highlight in the video that I thought it was interesting that Willie Mullins was running his horse in this race. William Haggis was running this horse in this race, Mystic Pearl, despite being wrong at the weights in terms of if they had been a handicap, Mystic Pearl would have been running off 78. Stenton Glider would have been running off 103 and Bridestones off 93. Now, it's a tricky one here. What do? Do they really put Mystic Pearl up 20, what? is that £25? £25. That's going to be a massive hike for Mystic Pearl. But she's won a listed race now, so I think she will. I think she'll go up to a mark of 100 for winning that. I think Stenton Glider will drop down to a mark of 100. With that in mind, you have to look at Bridestones. Finished third. Was given a good ride by William Buick. I had no complaints at all. She was rated 93 coming into that. Where do they go with her? Do they put her up a couple of pounds, or do they leave her? If they leave her on 93, I'd like to see her back in a handicap next time. I think she can certainly go well in a handicap. It'd be really interesting to look at this race and look at the handicap marks of all of these, because there's going to be something in this race that is not given the right handicap mark. Is it going to be Crystallium, who's currently rated 92, finished 4th? Or could it be 6th place Baxi Dar, who'd been really well supported, currently rated 87? You know, if some of those in front end up being rated nearer 100, if you're rated 87, 93, 92, you could pick up a handicap if they decide to do that. So it'd be interesting to look at this race in particular, this Coral Distaff, with the handicap marks in mind, and probably have to look at all of them, because none of them were that far behind, really. I mean, even Magical Sunset was only 2 lengths behind the winner. Currently rated 102, what do they do with Magical Sunset? I reckon they'll drop Magical Sunset down to 100. I think you could see a lot of them move to around the 100 mark. But, you know, 5th and 6th, there's such a big difference between some of these in their handicap marks that something is going to be ignored or forgotten about and end up really well handicapped in a handicap. Moving on to the 315, I was gutted here, to be honest. The reserve won it after getting in. Couple of things I want to talk about here. So first of all, Yukon Glen has ran at no sort of race whatsoever. Forgive him that run. He does... you know, it just didn't work. Apparently he was hanging left-handed the whole way. There are races for him later on in the season. I'm not totally sure what they're doing with... Let me just put... I can't put non-runs on because I'm logged out. La Yakel was again taken out last minute. They clearly want a bit of cut in the ground, or they don't want to waste this La Yakel on ground that he's not going to appreciate. If they do have the Ebor in mind with him, they're going to have to get a win into him soon, because he's only rated 92. And he's never getting in an Ebor off 92. They clearly like him and don't want to waste him on ground that they don't think is going to suit. So he's definitely one you need to keep an eye on still. La Yakel. Our other selection, therefore, that was in this race, we ended up having 2, and it was reduced to 1 after La Yakel was a non-runner, was Garcia. And do you know what? I honestly believe with a clear run he would have won. I really believe that. He was only beaten, just over a length in total. Didn't quite get up for third. Didn't get the clearest of runs. Was supposedly, Adam Farragher reported that he was very keen throughout the race. Clipped the rail turning in. Not that it made that much of a difference, I don't think. But yeah, didn't get a run 2 or 3 times right near the finish. And I think with a clear run, he would have won. Now... it's tricky with him because he's currently rated 99, and that would be risky to get in the Ebor off 99, straight off 99. So I wonder whether they might go and look to win a race carrying a penalty under Adam Farragher. Sorry, win a race with Adam Farragher riding and turn up in the Ebor off a penalty. So 99 and a penalty, I think, would get in, but 99 without a penalty, I don't think will get in. What they could do is they could go to Goodwood for I think it's the summer handicap. It's over 1 mile and 6. Actually won last year by Trawlerman, who went on to win the Ebor, carrying a penalty. Get Adam Farragher on board, claiming 3. So what that would essentially do is if he won off 99, he'd get the £4 penalty, so would be running off 104, but would still essentially be £3 lower because Adam would still be able to claim his 3. If Adam claims his 3... he'd be essentially running off a £3 lower mark than when he went off 4-1 for last year's Ebor. So I think that's how I would kind of do it with Garcia now. If he turns up at Goodwood off 99 with a £3 penalty, £3 claimer, he's still running off that 96 mark, which is still £7 lower than when he went off 4-1 for an Ebor. So I think that, you know, that's a really obvious plan for me. You go to Goodwood, you try and win it with Adam Farragher on board. he'll be so well handicapped that day that he should win that, and then should be able to run in the Ebor, still making use of Adam's £3 claim. So yeah, they were definitely the two still to take out the race. Garci and Layakel, wherever he ends up next. Moving on to the 340 at Sandown, the Eclipse. Great race, wasn't it? Just the two of them that were any good here. The other two, not that they're not any good. West Wind Blows and Dubai Ono were clearly out of their league here, or out of their depth. Great race. Paddington held off Emily Upjohn, who, when she used her turn of foot, wasn't actually able to get past Paddington. What we do have to remember, obviously Paddington was getting £7 from Emily Upjohn. If you swap that over and you change that £7 pull, I think Emily Upjohn would beat Paddington at this stage in their careers. And with that in mind, you know, there's clearly not a lot between them at all. Where do they go next? I imagine they'll both be off to the King George, or Emily Upjohn definitely off to the King George. Maybe Paddington might not. That might be a step up in trip too quickly. Yeah, I think Emily Upjohn, I still think there's £7 against the 3-year-olds, but without Paddington, I think she'll be able to use her turn of foot, and she's definitely going to have a big chance. But obviously, so will Pile Driver, who will also be likely to run there. I'll obviously look at that race in more depth when the time comes. But in terms of yesterday, yeah, I thought it was a great race. Both jockeys, Buick and Moore, gave their rides the perfect ride, and the best horse won on the day. Moving on to the 415, another one that we had a selection in. We had Majestic, who, bizarrely, I thought the booking of Ryan Moore was going to be a good thing. It might not have been in the end. I thought he gave him a little bit too much to do, just didn't quite get out in time. And maybe the previous jockeys, the likes of George Bass or Ben Curtis or Connor Beasley, who've ridden him a bit more, might have known that he needed to get going a bit earlier. I don't think he would have won even with one of those other jockeys, but he might have got a bit closer. Lord Protector obviously loves Sandown, got a lovely seam down the inside and won nicely. In terms of, you know, what's interesting behind it, it's still only Majestic. Majestic, you know, if they drop him £1 now and drop him back to 91, he's slowly coming down to a mark that, I mean, he's finished 4th off 92, 2nd off 92, 4th off 92, off 91. Again, you know, you're going to be nicely, going to look like he can certainly run a big race. So wherever he goes next, if the handicap is nice and drops him £1 as well, he'll surely have another big chance. Potentially back to York would be an idea for him. And finally, we move on to the 450, and it kind of was a bit of justification for following a horse here. We've obviously backed him the last twice. Classic, disappointed for us at Goodwood. Well, he didn't. He got bumped out wide. I then said he got beat by the right 5 horses. I know that sounds like an exaggeration, but the right 5 in terms of they were all the top 5 in our ratings, and things didn't go to plan that day. He then ran a decent race at Sandown, went 4th, in a race where the horses were as high as rated. It was a 0 to 100 race. He obviously dropped in class slightly last time, yesterday, to a 0 to 90, and did get up to win. Novus clearly looks like he needs a bit further. I think the 7 was a bit too short for him. Back up to a mile for him will be ideal, I think. And I think that was I actually think that was a good race, and obviously great news for us that we had the winner at Classic, who won at 9 to 1, which was lovely. So just a quick recap of things that I was interested in. Nothing really from the Coral Charge. Definitely keep an eye on Lordship's handicap mark. We'll look at the handicap marks of those from the Coral Challenge, but I still think Latam is the one to beat. Sea Silk Road will prove to be the best of those from that Group 2. Definitely want to look at the listed race, the handicap marks of all of these, to see who's been let off. From the 315, Garci, I hope he goes to Goodwood next and then goes to the Ebor, hopefully after winning at Goodwood. Emily Upjohn and Paddington, there's not a lot between them. Majestic will, if he drops in the handicap, that would be nice. Delighted for Classic. Oh, and I wanted to point one more thing out. Let me just quickly pause the video and find it. Here it is. I said, with Intelligent not jumping out today, maybe we'll see him here next week instead for Jane Chapel Higham. It's the John Smith's handicap, which he finished third in last year. And I got an interesting reply, to be honest, from the Jane Chapel Higham account. Is this suggesting they're going to go hurdling with it? Is that what that means? Which is a bit of a strange decision in my opinion. He's 8, so he's a bit late to be going hurdling. Also, last time he ran in that race, he finished third in the John Smith's handicap of 105. He ran yesterday off a mark of, or would have run yesterday off a mark of 100. He could be £5 lower than when finishing third, beaten 3/4 of a length by Anmart and Ashelwa. Anmart has gone on to obviously win a Group 1 since. I mean, that's crazy good form. And yet are they suggesting that they're going to go hurdling with him? I mean, that is a terrible decision if they're thinking of going hurdling with him, to be honest. You've got to go to that race at York next week. So, yeah, there's some thoughts. We'll be back probably Tuesday with the handicap analysis video.